How could the hellgate of Jerusalem be closed? How are temporary hellgates opened? Who seems to be charged with opening them? And what other places on earth, based in the myth, could be opened and allow the forces of the court of the seven-headed serpent through to earth? Those are the ideas we're going to explore today. So welcome back to the trenches, and let's begin. With the recent, at time of recording, law drop on Ira, we got a little explanation for hellmouths, as well as permanent ones. We learned there are temporary ones too. The law says this: with an enormous blood sacrifice of captives, enough goetic power was unleashed to open the long dormant hellgate of the Lake Pol and Ifrin, bringing the armies of the court to support the heretic invasion forces. Then later in that law is ended by a paladin. It says, the irreplaceable armour of Ansius had been torn and his eye lost in battle, but the hellmouth collapsed behind him as he emerged from the inferno, bloodied but victorious. So I think this might have some interesting possible implications for hellmouths. We learn there can be temporarily awakened and opened when enough pain and suffering is raised, and that these can also be closed, I assume by ending the sorcerer that cast the spell, and we will come back round to that idea. Also note the word dormant. In other words, they are waiting to be awoken from their sleep. So this law shows the court could spring up anywhere there is a dormant hellmouth, and that they can also be closed. For the hellmouth of the north, the relevant law we have states, since the fall of man, the borders between the worlds have been strained. When the perfect order of God was blighted by sin, it allowed creatures from hell to escape their miserable domains, where they had been condemned for their rebellion against God. With the ultimate heresy, the borders of the worlds became even more worn, and tears in reality appeared, allowing some denizens of hell to escape their just punishment, bringing misery to earth. So I would feel reasonably confident in stating that those holes in reality are likely the dormant spots where the temporary hellmouths can be found. The hellmouth of the north itself seems to sit between the permanent one in Jerusalem and the temporary one we learned about. It can be opened, the law says, in the vast coldness of the far north. The borders of creation sometimes give way, allowing a gaping hellmouth to manifest itself in the physical world. The gate appears for a few brief hours, in location and time, shifting with the mercurial power struggles of hell itself. So reading that, maybe even the hellmouth of the north is a temporary gate, just a notable one. Do many goetic sacrifices need to be made for that one? As the forces of the court fight those in the north, it seems a possibility, and it sways with the powers of the court. So perhaps when that goetic magic is riding high, that's more likely when it's going to appear. And sorcerers seem to be involved in the opening of the gate. Take a look at the hellmouth art. There's clearly a sorcerer in the doorway, and the tablets they use are circling around it in front of the gate and linking back to the sorcerer. So that seems a possibility. Or of course he's just there with his warband. I could be wrong on this. But let's go with the first idea. Within the sorcerer lore, we get this tie in to that image. The sorcerers study their secret spells of destruction and manipulation from ancient tablets, found atop many peaked and unsettling mountains of hell. For just as the Creator gave his laws atop of the holy mountain, so does hell provide its power to its dark art from the pinnacles of hell. When it retrieves the tablet, demon scribes must translate what it does. Its power could kill a fiefdom if unleashed, but some attempts to understand them are successful, and the sorcerer becomes a mighty master of goetic spells of the tablet. Their spells powered by the suffering of wretched mortals the court buys from hell's markets or acquire as tithes from their mortal followers. And now we come to the main hellgate front entrance, you could say, based on the law we now have, where a sacrifice is needed to keep the gate open, to raise a certain currency in goetic magic. I got thinking, this revelation to me might be pretty obvious to you. What if that gate in Jerusalem needs sacrifices too to keep it open? The first were taken by the weapon the Templars found and unleashed, and that likely lasts for so long in terms of the goetic magic and the sacrifices made, and when it runs out, we get passages like this, approaching the gate along the Valley of Tears. The great road that leads to the gate is paved with wailing souls and lamentations, and littered with endless mounds of charred bodies. Many are still half alive, writhing in agony, trapped in a grotesque twilight Between life and death, their wickedness deemed insufficient. These discarded souls are doomed to suffer until the day of judgment. That, and many more tortured ways, might be how the gate in Jerusalem is kept open, with the goetic magic there. And of course, if that's the case, then we can assume that by killing those suffering and empowering it, or some other key power behind the gate, it might be closed. Think on it. Those suffering, kept in that state, are a permanent, ongoing battery of power to ever maintain that magic, and the gate to earth open. So that's what I think. So let's shift gears here and look at places in our world, using the structure of real-world history and belief, where there might be a place where a temporary gate could be opened, ways down into the underworld, temporary sleeping. First up, from atlasobscura.com, our first gateway is an entrance to the classical hell, the Cape Matapan Caves, which are located on the southernmost tip of the Greek mainland. Cape Matapan, also known as Tinaro, is situated on the end of the peninsula known as the Mane. The cave opens at sea level into a cliff face beneath the headland, the exact point marked by the ruins of a Spartan temple above. That ties into Trench Crusade with the mention of the 5 rivers of hell from Greek myth. Our next location, the imposing stratovolcano known as Hekla, can be found in the southern mountains of Iceland, a fire pit of lava that has long been associated with the fire pit of Christian tradition. In the Middle Ages, monks travelled far and wide across Europe, carrying tales of Hekla Fell. In 1180, the monk Herbert de Clairvaux named the volcano in his book Liber de Miraculis. He wrote, "The renowned fiery cauldron of Sicily, which men call Hell's Chimney. That cauldron is affirmed to be like a small furnace compared to this enormous inferno." Next we turn to the home of Christianity in Trench Crusade, Italy and Rome. Wouldn't that be something if the seat of papal power is sitting within the area of a hellmouth? Each year thousands of tourists flock to the Roman Forum, and this well-preserved landmark is one of Rome's most popular attractions. Relatively few of Rome's visitors are aware, however, of the story behind the small stone well that stands at the forum's heart, once believed to serve as an entrance to the underworld. This Lake of Curtius takes its name from an ancient Roman legend. The historian Livy wrote of a time when an oracle foretold the fall of Rome. The message warned that the city would crumble unless it was prepared to sacrifice that which it held most dear. Meanwhile, a chasm opened in the centre of the forum to accept that offering, interpreting this riddle to mean Roman soldiers. Centurion Marcus Curtius sacrificed his own life, donning full armour before riding his horse into the pit, and then the chasm closed over his head and Rome was saved. This does tie to the law in this way. A lot of the gods and beliefs of Greece were subsumed and altered and brought into the Romans' own pantheon, and Christianity did become the main faith of the Roman Empire when I think it was Constantine announced Christianity as the official religion. So let me know your thoughts on this law, and if you like this video on Trench Crusade, then you might also like this one. And if you want a whole bunch of videos on Trench Crusade, there's a playlist on the channel. There are also 2 other playlists devoted to 40k, which shares a lot of DNA in terms of real-world references with Trench Crusade. There are 2. There's one focused on the Dark Age of technology, and the other one is a more general one, which just has all my work on 40k within it.